Hey YouTube, Alan back with another video, and this is sort of a follow-up to one of my own videos. So recently I put up a video talking about 3 gaming disappointments, I guess. Well, not quite, but basically series or games that people rave about and go on about, they're so amazing or genre defining, and for me, when I tried them, they didn't quite click. So today I want to kind of do almost the reverse of that, and that's talk about games where they may have been reviewed well or things like that, but when I initially played them, they didn't click. However, when I gave them a second chance, for different reasons we'll get into, they kind of, I got that light bulb moment and I went, yes, this is actually a good game and now I really like it. So, the first one I'm going to jump into is the most recent where this occurred, and that's Sonic 2 on the Sega Master System. So Sonic 2 on the Master System, we go way back, I suppose. Now I got this, I think Christmas 1995. Last Christmas where I was getting some for the Master System. I think it might have been one of the last games I got for the system. And its biggest sin, I suppose, was not being Sonic 1. It got great reviews in the likes of Mean Machines, and I was looking forward to this for years and years. And when I finally got it, I played it, and it's not as good as Sonic 1. Even today, I would still say it's not as good as Sonic 1. And that meant it always lived in that kind of shadow. And I suppose I perhaps never gave it a fair try and say, let it be its own thing and try and just review it as its own game. And recently, Ollie, 8-Bit Boy UK, put up one of the Sega Master System challenges, and it was high score in Sonic 2. And so that kind of gave me a chance to really kind of give it another go. And I learned the levels a lot more. I kind of started to learn the nuance of the kind of game mechanics a bit better. And even the annoying sections, the infamous hand glider, which, they put it on the cover. They want to show off it's rad, it's the 90s, you got a hand glider. Do they have it on the back? They don't. It was actually incredibly annoying to use the hand glider. It's not really intuitive how you control it, and a lot of people, it's a constant thing. If you kind of Google what happens to that, it just causes deaths. You kind of fall down the pit. When you get used to it, it's actually, you just tap left a little bit and boop, basically you're fine. But it just does not feel natural when you first play it. It also doesn't start with like a Green Hill type zone. It starts with underground, like a mine, and you've got a mine cart, and it's just weird. The bosses are a little bit different. They don't have as much character for me as like the Eggomatic robo things that Robotnik flies. Even though he does have a very nice one, sprite in the first zone, you don't find him, he flies off. So yeah, it didn't quite click with me. But playing it again, as I said, I learned to appreciate the game for its own merits. And now I actually really enjoy it. I think it's a very good game. You can tell, I think it's Aspect did this one, that they were still kind of learning, the Sonic formula, and they didn't nail it in the same way that Ancient nailed it for the Sonic 1. They do have more of those beginner's traps, I would call them, where if you're kind of running along and you're going to hit a baddie, or you're going to fall into spikes, or especially the bouncing in, say, Green Hill Zone, the later on zone, you bounce into spikes. So you do have to learn the levels a lot more before you can really kind of play with speed and kind of do well. Also, the game is very much about trying to complete it fast if you want high score and stuff. It doesn't have the nuance of Sonic 1, but now I can say, yeah, I do like this game. It's a good game. Sticking to the Master System front, they're not all Master System stuff, is Fantasy Star. Now, I've always appreciated Fantasy Star, but I've appreciated it more, or in the past I appreciated it more purely almost like a technical achievement. Like the 3D dungeons, the kind of big sprites, the colourful artwork. It was a tour de force for the system in terms of what it can do, especially for the RPG genre. Nice artwork too, to be fair, and battery backup, 8-bit RPG, there weren't that many around. It is definitely up there with the kind of the top of the genre. So I appreciate it, but I appreciate it from afar. And now, now I've actually replayed the game properly. Instead of just giving a kind of like, an hour or two here and there, I've played it on the Nintendo Switch using the Sega Ages version, which enabled me to kind of give it kind of a fresh shot. One, because the Sega Ages version has kind of reduced grinding, or it gives you more money per per battle and gives you a bit more experience. So basically the amount of grinding is dramatically reduced. But it also has like an auto map, and it has like an enemy guide and stuff like that. So it actually really helps make it a convenient experience. And as I played it on the Switch, I was like, wow, this is a great game. This is a really, really good RPG. And for the time, if I had actually got this back in the kind of late 80s, early 90s, I think it would have blown my mind how good this was. So I always rated it as a good game, a top game for the system, but I definitely appreciate it far more now and actually enjoy it as a game, and I would play it again. And it actually gave me interest that at some point I'll probably go and try the other Fantasy Star games. Yeah, so like that's a big turnaround. Didn't think it was bad, but now I think it is an absolutely top game on the system. And finally, I did say that these weren't all Master System. Final Fantasy VII. So the first time I played Final Fantasy VII, again, back in the 90s, not that much of an RPG guy. Still not today, really. Prefer more action games than talky games. I played a bit of it. My friends were going on about like, oh, this is so amazing. Oh, look at the and yeah, the opening cutscene is grand, but it's like, if I want to watch a movie, I'll watch a movie, you know. So I played a bit in the Midgar area, the kind of initial kind of onslaught, and I was like, it's okay, but I wasn't sold on it basically, and I would have thought no more of it, but they kept insisting, no, you have to get past Midgar, you have to get past Midgar. That's what it gets good when you get past Midgar. And initially I was like, hey, I shouldn't have to play for 4 hours before the game gets good, or however long it was. Like, that's far too long. Some games, especially coming from the 8-bit and 16-bit era, your game might only be an hour long. I shouldn't have to wait an hour or 2 hours before it gets good. But I would actually say that they were correct, because eventually I did I think I borrowed initially at the time off them when I got a PlayStation, and almost under a bit of duress, it was almost like it was foisted upon me. But I got past Midgar, and I did get good. It was very, very good, and it's one of the very few RPGs, or traditional kind of JRPGs, where I've completed 100%, did the extra weapons and all that sort of stuff, like all the chocobos, and it actually is a great game. And I like the kind of slightly weird mix of styles, the kind of slightly cartoony and slightly realistic, and early 3D all over the shop. It almost has more character as a result. You can feel the growing pains in that sense. But it kind of sucked me into the world and made me appreciate what an RPG can be. And again, I suppose it has the same kind of effect as Fantasy Star. So it actually made me want to play Final Fantasy VIII when it came out, and I played it. And I played about halfway through, and then I kind of lost interest, so I haven't played too many Final Fantasy since then. But Final Fantasy VII definitely was one that I initially was like, nope, totally dismissive of, and I ended up playing going, wow, this is amazing. So, hats off. I'm sure, look, there are plenty more. I kind of want to stick with 3 because I did 3 in my previous video, and I kind of show kind of counterpoint that there can be 3 kind of great video or great games that kind of address or change your opinion entirely. And yeah, it's not all about being negative. Anyway, again, if there's any games where you kind of first dismissed and then jump back in a second time and give them a new look, maybe when they got re-released on digital platforms, or maybe just going back as a kind of Master System challenge, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your suggestions. Anyway, that's all for now. We'll see you again soon.